Good morning to everyone. So first of all, I have to thank the University of Jaya, the scientific committee, and the organizing committee of this successful conference for inviting me to be a part, to be among scholars and teachers here present today. My paper is going to be entitled Small Translators Within the Algerian Context, Navigating Complexities. The outline will be in 5 points: introduction, legal translation, translatology concepts involved in legal text, and loss of the route map, and at the end, conclusion. We know that legal translation is a translation that is specialized in translating different kinds of certificates, diploma, medical statements, financial statements, evidence, dates of birth, medical recording, records, justice, or records, etc. So different kinds of papers that are included in the translation of or legal translation. My paper, we shed a light on a multifaceted realm of legal translation, and I'm going to focus on challenges of translating legal terminology. And mainly, I'm going to underline what we call the translation of acronyms. That is considered to be one of the problems, the hinders that most of translators are facing nowadays. And of course, I'm going to speak about the translation quality. Most of the known errors and difficulties encountered by translators, and what are the main consequences if these things happen? Maybe if a translator cannot understand, for example, an acronym, the meaning of an acronym, word, how is going to deal with first, and then what are the possible consequences that may be encountered after. The research methodology is going to be to focus on what we call the translation of some legal documents in what we call the Algerian context. That means I'm going to take some examples of Algerian documents and how do we translate them, how do we deal them as being what we say translators. I'm not going to focus on what we call some concepts, some standards that we as teachers or students at the Department of Translations throughout the Algerian context, mainly when we deal with the function equivalence, transliteration, calc, etc., etc. So I'm not going to focus on them, but I have mention them here just to ask another question. Is it possible, for example, that a student who has never been specialized in legal documents be able to use such concepts in translating these kind of legal translation? My assumption of the issue is no, and we may have, for example, sometimes when I'm dealing with my students in class, I try to give them what we call some passages, some paragraphs, and ask them to translate them. Of course, when we deal with literature text, with historical text, with media, for example, text or passages, it's easy to do so. But is it possible to achieve that in when doing what we call legal text? We have sentences in front of us, for example, in French language. Quand on dit l'acquéreur souffrira des servitudes, passer la parole au plus continu, au discontinu qui peuvent au courant grever le dit lot de terrain. In this case, if I give students this kind of passage, short sentence in French language, which has got a relationship with, selling land or selling a part of terrain or something like that. So is it possible to apply those standards, those concepts, to have the translation? The answer is no. So because it's very, very important to a student to do so. Since it's not a matter just of the choice of the terminology or what you call the diction, that the translator should, he must possess what we call an astute awareness of evolving legal landscape. And this is the translation of the previous text. Here we have another example. We know that, for example, translating this kind of text or wills has got what they call serious legal consequences. If the translator, for example, makes a mistake, so maybe his translation will be as a bill or as a law, as I don't know, declaration of war between members of the family. Imagine that we have this kind of message: all monies of which I possess shall be shared by my niece and nephews now living. So how am I going to translate this sentence? Am I going to consider this as money, the daily money, or is it state, or is it a movable state? So which kind of word am I going to use in order to translate this word? And here we have a chain of words that are possible to be chosen for the word monies. We have another case. I'm going to move on. So we know that any kind of mistakes that may be done by a legal translator may have, or for sure, it will have what we call negative consequences on the paper itself. And of course, it will be a path or way for the translator to another place, which is considered to be a jail or something like that. So we have, for example, one of the problems that we know is translating acronyms. So it's a very, very difficult job that translators face nowadays. So these translators, for the most of the time, these acronyms, for most of the time, are considered to be not a very difficult thing to deal with. But when you are being paid by the word, as most translators are, anything that slows you down is a disaster. So here, when we deal with what we call the time constraint, and I have some example, concrete examples. Here, the 2 pages here, I have a signature of the dean at our university. This is, I think, a diploma, which was given to me. I mean that I'm going to translation for it. I have this small kind of acronyms we have in Arabic language. We have Kaf Ain Dal Alif, Nun Ain Dal Mim, Mim Ta. On the second page, we have Kaf Ain Dal Alif, Alif, Mim, Ta, Ain, Kha. Second page, we have, for example, this is signature of the dean of one of our faculty. And above, we have Ain Alif. So how am I going to translate this Ain Alif? On the opposite side, I'm dealing with what we call a military paper, which is issued by Mudir Sanduq al Askariya. The problem that I have Mim Shin, and we have the name of the one who issued. So how am I going to deal with this kind of what do you call abbreviation? So is it possible to put the letter as they are? And here we have a problem of being what we call traitors, since we haven't respected the real meaning of the word. Here, for example, also I have been asked one day to translate the national service cards, which is RNDENRB. So how am I going to translate these things? Okay, so sometimes we have a problem of, I don't know, like this, for example, I was asked to translate this, what they call the insurance slip. And the insurance slip is for travelers who want to travel abroad. Sometimes they are asked to translate what we call this traveling insurance to be given or to be awarded the visa. So one of the acronyms I met one day was this word, which is MJ and D. So I was surprised. I didn't know what is the MJ and D. So I was obliged to call the insurance office and try to ask them to tell me what do they mean by this acronym. So by surprise, I was surprised when they told me that they consider these acronyms concern what we call the left hand and the right hand. For example, if you are traveling abroad and you are right-handed, and unfortunately you have an accident in the left hand, so you are not going to be rewarded as the same as right hand and the opposite. Okay. So here we have a problem to deal with this kind of, if you neglect them, that means you are becoming what we call a traitor. But if you respect, if you try to focus on the right translation of these acronyms, and of course you are going to waste much time in doing your job, but at least you are going to be fulfilled, and you are going to have what we call a good translation. So, as a conclusion, I know legal terminology is not static because it changes day after day. It evolves over time. That's why, for example, translators must be updated to ensure accuracy. Second thing, translator must carefully consider the broader context of legal docs to ensure accuracy. So, I mean, they have to know how do we use words in according to the context of, for example, the Algerian context, and how am I going to change such word in a British context? So respecting the two borders and the two sides to achieve or to reach the right translation of words. Translators must also navigate any facing any ambiguity while maintaining clarity and consistency. It's not enough for them just to have one word or to have the right dictionary word, because dictionaries are not a real, what do we say, item that we have to focus on. They are helpful tool, but they are not the final terminal that we are looking for as official translation. Translator also must be well versed in the legal system. They have to know some words. I give you one example in French language. Si on dit par exemple quelqu'un qui a hérité une voiture et une maison parce que son grand-père a dit un jour, la voiture sera héritée par mon bon-fils. Et entre bon-fils, on n'a pas de trait d'union. Et nous avons un bon-fils et un bon-fils. Je veux dire mon petit-fils, pas mon fils, hein, mon petit-fils. Alors, in this case, how am I going to translate mon petit-fils with a hyphen, avec un trait d'union, or without a hyphen? Because just a hyphen here can change what we say the meaning of the will or the paper, the official paper. So it is very important that we have to be updated, what we call, with the legal system, with the legal lexics that we are using in our translation. At the end, I have only one recommendation. We hope that your conference will include this recommendation, which is just provide a common guide to the various tools and references available to small translators for legal terminology, which can be considered as a common terrain for all sworn translators, so to avoid any misunderstanding and misconfusion when translating legal text. And thank you very much for your attention.